The first Mega Man, way back on the NES. When I first went back and played this, around when I was 13 or so, this game felt awful. Even as a longtime Mega Man fan, I just couldn't get myself to like it. It was clunky and too difficult, almost unfair. Now, 10 years later, I found great appreciation for the game, and it's even become one of my favorites in the entire series. So let's talk about Mega Man, and find out why it's so great. Being one of the earlier games to come to the NES, Mega Man still feels very archaic in many ways, especially in its looks. Although clearly very dated, the game looks clean and the game's artwork is beautiful. There isn't many elaborate backgrounds like you'd be used to from the games coming after it, but that's just fine. Visually, the game is concise and simple, and it still looks great. Each stage is visually distinct and interesting. For example, Gutsman takes you to a mine up in the mountains, while Man's level takes place in a large tower filled with electrical equipment, and Iceman takes you to a snowy wasteland. The soundtrack does a great job of setting the stage for each level, especially the more somber, intense Wily levels at the end of the game. This makes the first Mega Man a surprisingly atmospheric game given what technology was available at the time. Each of the 6 bosses you encounter also feel distinct and full of personality, down to the little animations they do as you first face them. While all of these would be done even better in the games following, this gives the game a unique charm that not many games of this era replicate to me. The Mega Man series has always been easy to pick up and learn by anyone, but the first one in the series really lives off of the simplicity. There's no iconic charge or slide, and rush and beat are nowhere to be seen. All Mega Man can do this time around is jump and shoot, and while this seems like a limitation at first, I think it makes the platforming feel very concise, something Mega Man 9 would profit off many years later as well. With only 6 bosses to defeat, Mega Man also only gets 6 weapons in his arsenal. Something many later games struggle with is giving each of these weapons a unique use case. Most often, many weapons are benched forever, or barely used. After all, when do you really ever use things like the Hard Knuckle, Crystal Shot, or Plant Barrier? In Mega Man 1, every weapon is used in some way, except for the Hyper Bomb, that one kinda sucks. Rolling Cutter can hit enemies up above, Ice Slasher freezes them in place, and Thunder Beam unleashes destruction on everything on both axes. Super Arm is used to get new items, fight bosses more efficiently, and clear paths in the final levels. And Mirror Beam takes care of some of the more finicky platforming by avoiding it entirely. It feels like each tool in Mega Man's arsenal really is useful for something, and none of the weapons get left behind. On your first playthrough, Mega Man seems incredibly difficult, or at least it did to me as a child. Some of the levels seemed almost impossible, like Iceman with those terrible shooting platforms, or the first Wily stage where you fight against the Yellow Devil. Many sections require tight platforming, and since Mega Man takes a lot of knockback from each attack, a single hit might be enough to force you to start all over again. This initial difficulty is one of the things that I liked the worst about this game when I was younger, but now I think it's actually its biggest strength. Mega Man's level design is like a small puzzle game in and of itself. Each level provides you with a platforming challenge, and in the same way, each stage has a solution you can apply to it. In Fireman's stage, for example, there's a pipeline that consistently shoots out fire beams. It's almost impossible not to get hit here unless you picked up the Mirror Beam earlier, allowing you to place a platform against the wall and avoid it entirely. This philosophy stretches throughout the entire game, like in Man's level, where the annoying sliding enemies that would usually knock you off easily can be destroyed with Rolling Cutter, allowing you to jump up without any danger. During Bombman stage, you can use Ice Slasher to freeze Sniper Joes and jump over them. Choosing which stage to do at what point in the game also plays a big role in this. Of course, every boss is weak to another's weapon, but there's more to it than just that. In Iceman stage, you'll encounter shooting platforms, which present some of the most dangerous jumps up to this point, paired with disappearing blocks just before them. These are a major hurdle, but if you've been to Gutsman and Man's stage before this, you can pick up the Mirror Beam. This gun allows you to place mirror platforms on the ground, allowing you to skip both of these sections and still have plenty of ammo to spare. In the final Wily level, smart use of your weapons makes many sections much easier, and is often even required, like in the first stage, where smart use of Ice Slasher allows you to scale the now frozen fire beams up to the next section. Some of the later boss fights, specifically the final 3 Wily fights, bring this concept to its conclusion. First, you fight Yellow Devil. He may seem like the most difficult boss in the game at first, but upon closer inspection follows the same simple pattern every time, allowing you to weave through his flying blocks effortlessly to take him down. Up next, the bubble bots require you to carefully plan the fight ahead of time, leaving enough blocks to allow you to maneuver around, and then using them at the very end to take down the most difficult and fastest boss instantly. In the final battle against Wily, you can take advantage of his lack of iframes to punish him with the Firestorm. During his second phase, he also has a huge blind spot underneath him, allowing Megaman to comfortably rest up. Each fight is made significantly easier after you find out what makes them tick, and it's incredibly satisfying once you figure out each boss's specific strategy. Luckily, the game is also a lot less punishing than it seems at first, so finding out all of this really isn't that difficult. Anytime you die, you can simply retry at the beginning of the level. Even in Wily's Fortress, you'll never be kicked back any further than the beginning of the current stage. In this way, the game allows for you to freely experiment and try out new strategies. There's no losing state, so you'll never have to do the entire game over again, no matter how many times you fail. Megaman is a game that lets you figure out the solution to its challenges all on your own, and the satisfaction of doing so is what really makes this game incredible. It feels endlessly replayable, and I find myself going back to it pretty much regularly, still finding new things every now and then. And even if I don't, every playthrough is still a huge blast. Unfortunately, I don't think the game gets the recognition it deserves anymore. Not only did it lay out the foundation for every Mega Man game to follow, I believe it can stand on its own too, and provide a great experience even today. I guess it is a little dated after all, but that is just fine.